Hello and welcome to the FinTech Magazine Show, brought to you by FinTech Magazine, InsurTech Magazine and BizClick Media Group. I'm Alex Clere, and as always, over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll be bringing you the latest news, analysis and opinions from the worlds of FinTech and InsurTech, right here on LinkedIn, YouTube and our other digital platforms. Now, we're very excited here at the FinTech Magazine Show because we get to introduce you to a brand new editor joining FinTech Magazine and InsurTech Magazine. Let's bring on Lewis Thompson. Lewis, if we can say hello to you. Good to have you on board. How are you?
Hi, Alex. Yes, many thanks for having me on board, and I look forward to connecting with everyone over the coming months.
Excellent. You're very welcome. Now, we have a bit of a time-honoured tradition here on the FinTech Magazine Show. Newbies always get to read our LinkedIn poll for the week. So all will become clear later in the show why we're asking our viewers this question. But first of all, Lewis, care to do the honours?
Yes, of course. So for our poll this month, we asked you, should banks limit the amount of money that account holders can transfer to crypto exchanges? And the options were yes, because scams are all too common. B, no, it's consumers' money. And C, not sure. So you can vote now on our LinkedIn page, and we'll tell you the results of that poll a bit later.
Thank you very much. As I said earlier, we will explain why we're asking that question a little later in the show. Some of you may already have cottoned on. As always, don't forget to join in with the chat, say hello in the comments section on LinkedIn, and even better, tell us where you're joining from today. We may even read a selection of those comments later in the programme. We have a very special guest coming up in a little while, but first, let's take a look at the latest FinTech and InsurTech news. So we start this month with the latest InsurTech news. Lewis, what can you tell us?
Yeah, so the InsurTech story this month is about large insurers, including Zurich and Munich Re, withdrawing from the Net Zero Insurance Alliance. So it's a UN-convened coalition of insurers and reinsurers who are part of a group that are publicly committed to transitioning their portfolios to net zero by 2050. Other members of the NZIA include Allianz, Aviva, AXA, and Swiss Re. But the spotlight is actually on Zurich and Munich Re because in the space of a week, they both have actually withdrawn from the alliance. Both organizations have continued to emphasize their commitment to reaching net zero, but it seems as though they're going to be doing it alone. Zurich haven't released much information so far about why they're leaving the alliance. However, Munich Re CEO Joachim Wenning has cited material antitrust risks as the main reason for withdrawing from the NZIA. This basically refers to legislative maneuvers in America, where a group of House Republicans have issued a warning about firms collaborating on sustainability initiatives. They see companies collaborating on sustainability as a potential conflict of interests with antitrust laws and have promised to start going after companies. In other parts of the world, regulators like the CMA in the UK have already issued clarification about when ESG collaboration is allowed under competition law. And obviously with environmental performance being one of the main strategic focuses for businesses right now, this issue raises questions about the ability for insurers to be able to work together to tackle climate change. At the moment, it doesn't look like any other insurers are about to imminently withdraw from the NZIA, but of course, it's still a cause for concern. Environmental campaigners have said that the decision must not get in the way of keeping the 1.5 degree target alive.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on now to this month's FinTech news. We have something from the world of crypto, and this is the reason why we're asking you the LinkedIn poll this month. That's because several banks in the UK are limiting the amount of money that account holders can transfer to crypto exchanges. NatWest has become the latest bank to introduce safeguards against consumer spending on cryptocurrencies. It follows in the footsteps of Nationwide, HSBC and Santander, which are some of the UK's biggest high street banks and building societies. They say it's to protect consumers from a rising tide of crypto scams. But we want to know from you, is it justified or is it a little bit of an overreach? So the limits themselves are far above the level that most consumers will ever spend on crypto, £1,000 a day or £5,000 over a 30-day period. So it's likely that they won't affect too many consumers on a daily basis, although it may affect crypto investors in a sporadic or one-off fashion. NatWest believes the increased customer protection is necessary, with consumers losing over £300 million last year to crypto scams. Nearly 4 in 5 British crypto owners hold less than £5,000 in total, according to a 2021 report from crypto platform Gemini, with 2 in 5 holding less than £1,000. The bank also argues that risk has become heightened, with the promise of high returns playing on vulnerable consumers' desperation in the midst of a cost of living crisis. That goes some way then to explain why NatWest has tightened its crypto safeguards now. But of course, there are still critics of the move as well. Alessandro Hatami, managing director of strategic consultancy Pacemakers, told FinTech Magazine that it's a, quote, disturbing and overzealous trend. We'll find out what you think of it at the end of the programme. So that's the latest news from FinTech and InsurTech. Stick with us though, as after the break we have an interview with John Dwyer, Head of Research for IBM X-Force. We'll be discussing the cybersecurity landscape and asking where finance and insurance rank in terms of the most targeted industries. See you after this short break.
Universo mission is bringing inclusive and simple financial services to the Portuguese people. My name is Carlos Brasil David. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Universo Sonai. Universo Sonai is a company within Sonai Group that is one of the major groups in Portugal. Sonai core business is retail, food retail, electronic retail, but Sonai also is in telecom, is in real estate. Our core, it is credit, all type of credit needs that we have on our daily life. Credit in a credit card, credit for a project, for traveling, so all type of credit that people need. That is the first one. So the second one, of course, is payment and accounts, and we offer to our customers all kinds of payments, transfers, national transfers, SIPA transfers. We enable our customers to pay for their bills, to pay for their taxes, for the train ticket. We also have insurance, life insurance, health insurance, travel insurance, home insurance. Our plan now is continue enlarging our offer to savings and to investments. And we believe that with the credit, payments and accounts, insurance, savings and investments, we cover the major needs of the retail customers.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And thank you also to those of you who are commenting in the chat. Hello to Sweeter. Hello to Noel, listening from New York. You're very welcome. Please do continue to get involved in the chat. And if you haven't already done so, take part in the LinkedIn poll that's on our LinkedIn page right now. So now it's time to introduce our special guest on the programme. Cybersecurity is one of the most pressing topics affecting businesses of all sizes. John Dwyer is Head of Research for IBM X-Force. Their latest edition of the IBM X-Force Threat Intelligence Index highlights both the scale and nature of the cybersecurity threat facing finance businesses today. And I'm very pleased to say that John is joining us live to discuss the findings and talk about what we can all do to mitigate the amount of cyber risk we face. So if we can bring John onto the programme. John, welcome to the FinTech Magazine Show.
Hi, thanks for having me. You guys have great intro music. I found myself bobbing my head while I was waiting in the green room.
Thank you very much. It's not bad, is it? First things first, could you talk to us about what IBM X-Force is?
Sure. So X-Force is IBM Security's elite team of hackers, incident responders, and threat intelligence analysts. And what we do is we help clients across the globe prepare for and respond to cybersecurity incidents. And even more importantly, I would say, is that we help organizations identify weaknesses in their security posture and then help them address them so they don't even have an incident in the future.
Perfect. So we mentioned about IBM X-Force's recently released Threat Intelligence Index for 2023. What do you think are the primary contributing factors to the threat landscape for finance and insurance organizations?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because if you look at the data, it's so interesting to pull the narrative out of like what is happening in the world. And so if you look at basically the threat intelligence index, the number one thing that's going to pop out to you is that backdoors were globally and in financial and insurance industries alone was the number one actions by attackers. But of all of those backdoor attacks, 70% of them were failed ransomware attempts. And additionally, what we saw is there was a shift from phishing syndicates moving away from the data that they were targeting. Classically, they had been targeting credit card information or banking information, and now they've shifted into trying to grab things like credentials or PII, like information about people, email addresses, names, addresses, and such. So, what can we glean from that behavioral shift from the cybersecurity? Is that, first of all, the good news is that if you look at all the incidents that came in from our clients, is that clients, for the first time since the boom of ransomware, clients are starting to call us when the back door of the ransomware attack is happening. So they're detecting and responding to that back door. So efforts and investments into detection and response has had a marked result. We have seen an actual shift in the data to show that that has improved, which is great news. That's not to say that ransomware has gone away. It's still the number two action on those objectives, but it is a shift, and it's a shift. And if we need to continue on that momentum so it doesn't take back over, because as soon as these criminals' bottom line is impacted, they are going to adjust. And the second part of that is that the shift for credit card data to PII is we can see that extortion-based attacks are driving the whole global economy of cybercrime. And every ancillary area of cybercrime is now driving efforts into keeping that machine going.
Okay, so if there are these challenges that we all face, really, if ransomware is such this big issue, are there, would you say, common weaknesses within finance and insurance organizations? Are there things that we can tighten up?
So I love that you answered that question, because what we've seen is if you look at ransomware attacks, it's not something that is actually pervasive across just finance and insurance. This is a global problem. And if what we have done is, if you look at how ransomware attacks happen, actually we published a paper called Understanding the Adversary, How Ransomware Attacks Happen, right? And if you look at how these ransomware attacks actually carry out, what these criminals did is they came up with one attack path that essentially worked on the majority of organizations on the planet. And they carried out this attack and the whole world burned to the ground, because they capitalized on problems that had persisted through organizations, regardless of the business vertical, that have existed for 10 and 20 years. And those are the things like overextension of privileges, overextension of access, like things where admins have too much access. And they were able to build upon that to take advantage of those very permissive security architectures to come up with one attack pack that was applicable to a bunch of different organizations.
Okay, obviously, businesses and consumers alike now both feeling the squeeze from cost of living pressures at the moment. Have you seen any evidence of businesses sort of deprioritizing or downgrading cyber insurance cover?
Well, we've definitely seen more concern with spending. That's something that we have seen. I think it's important message that everyone should take is that cyber insurance is not a replacement for proactive cybersecurity strategy. And that's they have their place, right? Your cybersecurity strategy is alone, and cyber insurance should be considered a backstop and something that you should definitely invest in, but keep those separate, right? What we should be concerned with is that the investment into cybersecurity as a whole is dropped because of economic downturn. If you look at some of our other publications, that's a very slippery slope, right? Because we release something called the cost of a data breach every year, and what we see is that the cost of an incident is very significant, and that is increasing year over year. So if we see organizations reducing their investment into cybersecurity, what we could be doing is just ending up with a massive amount of financial impact down the road by trying to navigate these times. So while I do understand the tightness that organizations are going through, we have to keep in mind that cybersecurity is here to stay. It's the cost of doing business, because if you don't invest in that, it's going to cost you, literally.
It's sort of, a false economy to save in cybersecurity. Okay, well, John, it's great to have you with us. If you stick with us for the time being, we do love a top 10 here on the FinTech Magazine Show. So we have one in every issue of the magazine. So we thought that this was a great opportunity to bring you the top 10 most targeted industries from a cybersecurity perspective, courtesy, of course, from IBM X-Force's latest Threat Intelligence Index. So these are the 10 industries that hackers and cyber criminals are targeting the most. Lewis, what can you tell us?
Yeah, so the Threat Intelligence Index report showed the most attacked industries based on a share of attacks. So number 10 was media and telecom, followed by transportation, government, healthcare, and education. And entering into the top 5, the 5th most attacked industry was retail and wholesale. The fourth industry most attacked was energy, which obviously is a vital infrastructure with over 10% share of all attacks. In third was professional, business, and consumer services with nearly 15% of attacks. Finance and insurance was actually the second most targeted industry for cyber attacks for the second year in a row, registering 19% of all attacks. And at the top of the leaderboard, manufacturing was the number 1 most targeted industry, attracting almost a quarter of all attacks.
Okay, thank you, Lewis. John, manufacturing, the most targeted industry last year for the second year in a row. Can you tell us sort of about the factors that have made manufacturing a prime target over the last few years?
Yeah, so it's very interesting, because this is a symptom of the global threat landscape. So globally, regardless, it's like cyber attacks have shifted towards extortion-based attacks. And something about cyber criminals is through extortion attacks, criminals are always going to find the path that they're able to cause the most pressure, because pressure means payment at the end of the day. And what we learned over the pandemic, there's a lot of lessons that we have about manufacturing as an industry, is when manufacturing is impacted, whether it be through a global pandemic or a cyber attack, there are real world consequences, right? Those things like supply chain being impacted, or economic, things that actually moving dollars and cents throughout the world, can be impacted by something like manufacturing. So they're in a really unique position where criminals are also observing that as well. And they know that they are focusing on manufacturing industries because they are able to apply industry that is already under a huge amount of pressure with even more pressure through an extortion based attack. And so they're able to do things like demand higher payments, because they know that these industries are already, under the gun, so to speak.
Okay, and even though finance has sort of fallen to second place, if you want to put it in those terms, fintechs still need to be vigilant, don't they? Do you think that there's still a chance that they'll become the number 1 target again?
Well, I mean, finance and fintech has been the number 1 targeted industry from 2015 to 2020. So it's not like they have been ignored, and it's something that they're right there, always to be right there. And like water is always going to find the lowest point in a floor. Like criminals are always going to find the path to payment. And finance and insurance, they have a lot of very crucial data, and they have money, right? So there is always going to be a path to payment at the end of the day. And so you can't rest on your laurels from being like number 2, right? It's still very, very much important, because at any time, if globally the criminals start to realize that one organization has a least path of resistance to payment, they are going to shift and they are going to adapt. We've seen how quickly it changed, right? So the pandemic happened. Within 1 year, manufacturing took over when we shifted to these new types of attack. That's how quick it can be. And we have to consider that, it can shift like that, and we need to be prepared for it. So we need to constantly thinking we're number 1, because at any moment you could be.
So if the threat landscape is shifting that rapidly, what would your sort of core message be to our viewers watching today about their own cybersecurity within their business?
So I think the main message is that there's no single out of the box solution to cybersecurity. You can't walk into a store and say, "I'll take one security, please," right? That's just not the way it is. Like it is a continuous and lifelong journey, and one that we must continually to evolve and mature with the threat landscape. So my best piece of advice with cybersecurity would be to invest in the people, processes, and technology that are going to reduce the amount of risk that you have, and then test them. Make sure you're testing them. Test them often, and make sure you address those gaps that you find through those testing.
Okay, well, thank you, John. That's a really useful piece of advice, I'm sure. We really appreciate you coming onto the show today, and it's been a pleasure to have you. So thank you very much indeed for joining.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So if you enjoyed that interview, you'll probably enjoy a little bit of this. On Wednesday, the 3rd of May, BizClick will be hosting our virtual live stream event, FinTech Live Virtual New York. We'll be discussing a range of the fintech and insurtech industry's hottest topics, including embedded finance, AI, CBDCs and DeFi, as well as digital transformation in the insurance industry. It's free to join, and you can live stream it from wherever you are in the world. The times are 10:25 a.m. until 4 p.m. New York time. That's 3:30 p.m. till 9 p.m. London. And of course, we'll have all the sessions available to watch on demand afterwards. So to save your seat, just visit virtual.fintechmagazine.com. We look forward to seeing you there on the 3rd of May. So we've obviously got a cram-packed show today. It was good to have John with us just now, but we've just got time to round up the latest issue of FinTech Magazine, which is out right now. So the April edition of FinTech Magazine has a stunning Bitcoin-themed cover that alludes to our main feature this month, which is on crypto regulation and how we use crypto to build towards greater financial inclusion. We also examine the rise of so-called super apps. We'll be asking why they've become so popular and whether or not striving towards super app status is the right approach for all B2C fintechs. And our monthly sustainability feature is around renewable energy and what the finance industry can do to accelerate the transition towards renewables. We also have a top 100 women in fintech supplement out this month. You can catch that in full on our website, or there's an abridged top 10 version in April's magazine. So do go in and check that out. You can find it on fintechmagazine.com. So before we go, Lewis, have you got the results of our LinkedIn poll for us?
I do indeed, Alex. So we asked you guys, should banks limit the amount of money that account holders can transfer to crypto exchanges? And 25% of you said yes, scams are too common, while the overwhelming majority, 70% of everyone says no, that it's the consumer's money, while 6% remained unsure. So I think we have our answer there.
Okay, thank you very much. Some very interesting results. I think it was fairly emphatic. I think anybody in banking or any financial institution or financial services has to strike this constant balance between, protecting consumers, but also not sort of overreaching and being a little bit overzealous on regulation. So it's not an easy thing to get right. It's not an easy balance. And we certainly respect why these banks are doing it. But also thank you for taking part in that if you have. If you haven't already taken part in that, you can still add your voice to the conversation. Just go onto our LinkedIn page. We'll leave that one open for you for a few more days. So that's almost all we've got time for this month's FinTech Magazine Show live on LinkedIn, unfortunately. We'll be back on Friday, the 5th of May. So please do put that one in your calendar and make sure to sign up to FinTech Live Virtual New York on Wednesday, the 3rd of May as well. We look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible. Thank you so much to Lewis Thompson. A world-class debut, I've got to say. It's great to have you on the team, Lewis.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you also to John Dwyer. Thank you also to John Dwyer, Head of Research at IBM X-Force, who joined us for our live interview today. And thank you to you for watching and taking part. We do just have time to round off the comment section. Thank you to everybody who's participated in the chat and taken part today. Hello to Gisela in Sweden and to Siva Maran and Gavind in London as well. It was great to have you on today's show. So to everybody watching, have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.